All right, thank you for joining us today as we do our Ask the Expert series. We have Paige Menard, and I hope I said that right. If not, you can
It's
correct me.
Maynard, but yes,
Maynard,
it's good
okay.
to be
All
here.
right. Okay, thank you. And we have Dixie Mars. Again, correct me if I said that wrong. Okay. And they are both with the Visually Impaired Preschool, which we call VIPS. So Paige or Dixie, I just want to give you all the opportunity to kind of further explain what VIPS does, kind of where your locations are, and how people can get in contact with you, because some of our followers may not be as familiar with you as we are.
Sure. VIPS is a nonprofit agency, and we serve children and their families birth to 5 who are blind and visually impaired through educational and family support in Kentucky and Indiana. We have 3 offices. One is in Louisville over off Goldsmith Lane. The other that's in Kentucky is in Central Kentucky. That's actually where Dixie is based out of. And Dixie, I'll let you talk a little bit more about the location of that office.
We are off of Henry Clay Boulevard, and we are actually housed with the Lexington Hearing. Well, that's the Hearing and Speech Center in Lexington now.
And then our other office in Indiana is actually in Indianapolis, in the Interfaith building that's there. So we've got some offices all around, but we serve the entire state of Kentucky and the entire state of Indiana. Any other information about us, we're always housed on the web too at vips.org.
Okay, perfect. So we've worked with you all. We have a program called the Hollerin program that provides funding for specific things for low vision patients. And I think we've helped some of the children there, and it's always exciting getting those photos back of the kids. And we appreciate the great work that both of you all and everyone there at VIPS does. So we've invited you all on here today because December has been named by the American Academy of Ophthalmology as Safe Toys and Celebration Month. And when we were trying to figure out who would be the expert in this month, we were thinking about VIPS, and just you all work daily with children of various young ages and various skill levels. So I just wanted to get your all's opinion on kind of what are good toys or gifts for children as people are now in the gift buying season. So if you could just share a few tips or ideas about how to determine if a toy is safe or appropriate for a child.
Well, first we would say that as far as the, actual toy safety protocol, we're definitely not the professionals on determining that part, but we do know that what we can do is we can trust packaging and labeling, on toys and items that are purchased for kiddos. But then we also know that many children that we serve, may have some other needs or may have developmental delays or, just every child's different. So we also encourage families to exercise sound judgment based upon your knowledge of like the development of a child. So, if you have an older child who, puts things in their mouth, you might still consider them at risk for a choking hazard, so kind of keep those things in mind. Also, children have varying levels of independence. So in purchasing, you might think about, the amount of need for supervision that the child has, and that can vary from child to child. So I would just say, kind of keeping in mind, the individual child, use the packaging as a starting point, but then also use your best judgment about the individual.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. So as technology continues to develop, there are all kinds of new electronic toys or electronic devices that come out. Are there any of these, whether they're electronic or not, just any toys that you specifically do not recommend for any child, or toys that you specifically do recommend for any child, I guess?
I think both Paige and I, as professionals, we really and truly like the low tech items first. Toys that don't have bells and whistles and lights and music. Those are just such better toys to work on creativity and imagination, social interaction. Um, and children kind of do gravitate towards those toys. We and they're also easier to maintain. You don't have to worry about batteries. They're a little bit cheaper usually. So that's kind of where we go. We do suggest trying low tech first, but there are children that do need some bells and whistles just to encourage that play for cause and effect and different aspects of development. A lot of our children don't really play with toys unless there's a function to it. So they might not want to release something purposely. For instance, just to put a puzzle piece into a puzzle unless they're going to get some kind of reward. So we always suggest looking at that low tech first, and then as they need more feedback, that higher tech can be a good thing as well. There are lots of high tech toys like tablets and different things like that. And we just, encourage families to look at the time spent interacting with a toy that's higher tech, encouraging them to use those low tech toys first. But then if they need the iPads or the tablets or toys that light up and play music and do different things, that maybe that could be on a limited basis.
Yeah, sounds good. So because each of you work daily with children of various levels of vision impairment, I wanted to ask you this question because this is something that comes up in our Kids Eye program a lot. We go into daycares and different facilities and do vision screenings on children 6 and under, so similar age group to what you work with. And a lot of times when a child is referred and they have to receive glasses after receiving our screening, the parent is sometimes left wondering, how did I not know that my child needed glasses? So I wanted to see if you all could share just some things that parents can look for during the holiday season, when they're opening gifts or just doing their daily activities. Is there anything that they can look for to kind of hints or signs that their child isn't seeing 20/20 or as best as they should be?
Yeah. Well, we just encourage families to always be there, observing their children, and families typically know their kids best. And a lot of times, some of the folks that we work with, they'll say, well, I had this gut feeling that, there was something going on, and go with your gut. So I encourage families to do that. As far as things that you might look for, they would be like bringing items or the child's self close to them to be able to see. So kind of getting up close to things. We also see kids like rubbing or poking or squinting their eyes, those sorts of kind of different behaviors that you might see. It's just like regarding eyes in general. We also note that some of our kids are, they may have either an attraction to light, so they're light gazers, or they might, avoid light, and, that can kind of be bothersome to them, because of whatever's going on with their vision. We also note like tripping and stumbling over items, or, surface changes, like the going from like linoleum to carpet, or from the sidewalk to to grass or something like that. So that can demonstrate some visual difficulty. Also, just like the appearance of the eyes, if they're crossing, that's definitely a reason to get things checked out. If your kid's complaining of headaches, that can be also vision related. And then another one that can be looked at would be like distractibility or like poor attention. Because we know that if kids aren't seeing things very well, then their attention is not going to be as long or as consistent, because it's harder to maintain your attention on something if you're not seeing it well. So any of those things, if you're seeing that in your child, we would just recommend you go ahead and get something checked out as far as vision goes.
Okay, perfect. So if a child has been recently diagnosed with a significant vision impairment, is there anything that you recommend to parents to do, kind of the first step or couple of first steps to help the child?
we would highly recommend, if your child's been diagnosed with a visual impairment, especially if they're under the age of 5, to contact VIPS. And again, you can find us on the web at vips.org. Also, if they are already in school, it's definitely something to bring up with the teachers and talk to the teachers about if they're seeing concerns and your concerns, and then possibly get them evaluated for vision loss in the school system through a teacher of the visually impaired. The other thing that we would suggest is to look at community supports through social media. There's often certain diagnoses have foundations, and those are always a very good support for families to get to meet other families and professionals that work within that diagnosis.
Perfect. So as the holidays are just around the corner, do you have any personal recommendations on items to get children who do have either low vision or very limited vision, or maybe who are even legally blind, especially for those parents who are new to this, who have just had a child diagnosed? Is there anything that you would definitely recommend to be a starting item that they would need?
Yeah. The first thing that we would like to say is that sometimes it can kind of be a little bit intimidating or scary, thinking about, oh goodness, what do I gift a child with a visual impairment or a child who's blind for Christmas? But the first thing is to just remember that kids with visual impairments are kids first, and that's really their first identity. So if there's anything popular out there or anything that they're interested in, then go ahead and get that for them, because chances are they're going to like what other kids like. As far as some specific recommendations, I've got some websites that might be helpful. So toyawards.org has lists of the most popular toys that are out there, for the holiday season. So that's a good place to start. Also, it might be good to just kind of get creative about how those specific toys are played with. For instance, Legos is always a really popular toy. And so, because it's tactile and multisensory, it really doesn't necessarily need a lot of adaptations. But as far as like the instructions go, sometimes that can be a way that kids who are visually impaired or blind, may struggle with, like some of the builds and things. But one of the ways that we are blessed in our world is with the website Lego Audio Instructions. So you can go there and there are all kinds of builds there and kind of access those instructions, and that can make, whatever the gift is even more accessible for the child. So other things in general that you can do to adapt toys that, are just kind of mainstream would be to add Braille. You can add textured stickers. Also just encouraging the child to use magnification for games, and all those things would be available at aph.org. For some of the little ones, we think about getting them little kitchen sets and all that, fun stuff, little play food for Christmas. But something I recommend, and also whenever I'm shopping too, I always get excited about if I'm at Hobby Lobby or, somewhere like that, some of that more realistic play food can be more fun than some of the plastic stuff, because it has the weight of real food or, the texture, things like that. But I also would encourage people to be careful of choking hazards on that one. And then the last, big recommendation that I have is there is a really good list that already exists for specifically ideas for kids with special needs as far as those gifts go. And so if you just go to navigatingspecial.com, there's a gift guide there, such a great website, and it is organized by developmental area and also sensory channel. So, if you want to get a child with low vision a gift that, is more easily seen, or a child who needs more tactile input, you can kind of just go to that section and everything's clickable and has links and stuff. So other things would be also just kind of generally learn about the child. Sometimes it's intimidating to get someone something for Christmas if you don't know them very well. So asking the child or the parent, it's okay to ask the child to make a list or the parent to make a list. Also, really what better gift is there than just spending time together? So spend time together, before Christmas, learn about them, what their needs and their interests are. So that can be helpful. It's also good to consider the child's developmental needs, also their mobility. So, thinking about kids who have the developmental skills of a younger child, but chronologically they may be a little bit older, be considerate to what their age is. We wouldn't want to get a baby toy for a 10-year-old, if their developmental skills are not at the 10-year-old level. So there are those toys that are, they're kind of ageless, I guess we would say. So things like slinkies, bubbles, Play-Doh, slime, art supplies, balls, all of those things, it doesn't really matter, what the age is on there. So we encourage, those sorts of things if you're really not sure what to get your child. For Braille readers, seedlings.org, National Braille Press has some really great titles of Braille books. And then I would say the last thing too are that a lot of things that would be helpful for young people with disabilities oftentimes are more expensive items. So it's a good idea maybe to go in with your family members on some of those bigger ticket things that the family might not be able to afford, throughout the year, or you couldn't afford by yourself. So, some of those things might be like a bubble tube or a therapy swing or some adapted outdoor equipment, things like that. So those would be our recommendations.
Well, thank you all so much for being on here with us today. If there's anything else that you all want to add, feel free to jump in and do that right now. Okay. I think we covered everything that we had on our list. So I appreciate you all taking the time to be with us here today, and excited to get this information out to our followers and anyone that follows VIPS. This is probably just a good reminder to family members of even some of your children that are in your programs, just easy ways to help during the holidays. So thank you again so much. All right. Thank you. Well, you all have a good night, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.